Coming up on CarAdvice, dual cab utes, we throw the Toyota Hilux, Volkswagen Amarok and the Ford Ranger in the ring to see which one comes out on top.
7-seat SUVs will hit the road in Kia's flagship SUV, the Kia Sorento GT line.
And the need for speed. Alborz Fallah joins the panel to bring us all the thrills and spills coming up on this year's F1 season.
Hello, I'm Trent Nikolic. Welcome to CarAdvice. Thank you again for joining us. Another big week in automotive. We're going to take a look at the Toyota Hilux, the Volkswagen Amarok and the Ford Ranger. Not a three-way test, but three individual reviews. Very, very big vehicles in a very important segment. The Kia Sorento GT line. We'll take a look at our single car review of that one. Again, very important segment and an important one for Kia. And we're going to have CarAdvice founder Alborz Fallah along to talk about Formula One and Daniel Ricciardo's move to Renault, whether it's shaping up to be a good one or a bad one. Paul Maric, thank you for joining us.
Hello, mate. Forward warning, I know nothing about F1.
That's fine. That's fine. It's good to have you here. Let's get straight into it. First up, Paul, the news this week. Usually we take a look at a couple of different stories, but what we're going to do is focus on the recent Geneva Motor Show. And I think it's an interesting one for us to chat about because we have been saying that the death of the motor show is imminent. We've been saying on the show regularly that we think the motor show as we know it is coming to an end. However, Geneva has always been one of my favourites, and I think this show was a particularly exciting one, wasn't it?
Well, we all know Geneva is the place where you can go and spend a whole heap of money on everything. Everything from coffee to pens and watches.
That's it.
Geneva is the place to go, and it certainly didn't let us down this time around with Bugatti releasing the most expensive production car in the world.
The funniest part for me is that it was reported that it was 17 million, I think, euros.
No, so 17.6 million Australian dollars, around 11 million euros.
So then Stefan Winkelmann, who's the boss of Bugatti, came out and said, no, he actually paid closer to 19 or 20 million dollars, the person who bought it. So it's actually even more expensive. However, we won't pronounce the French name here.
No,
because,
do it.
Do you want me to try it?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, Les Voitures Noir, I think is how you say it. My little brothers and sisters speak French. They're going to kill me for that. The reality, though, is for your $19 million, you get a car called the Bugatti, the black car.
And it's black.
Wouldn't you want more than that for your money?
Makes sense.
Couldn't they have come up with a better name?
Let me tell you, you do get some proper enhancements
as you
here.
should. Yep.
8-litre engine, W16.
That's enough.
About 1 million turbochargers.
Yep.
1,100 kilowatts of power. I mean, that is insane.
It's just nonsense, isn't it?
Newton meters of torque, and it'll do 0 to 100 kilometres an hour. Tesla reckons they've got this one in the bag. No, this will outdo any Tesla on the market, 2.4 seconds to 100
It's crazy, isn't it? And look, there was a whole bunch of production stuff that we'll get to in a minute. Some of the prototype things were good. The VW ID buggy, so an electric buggy that looks like the old Dune buggy, that was cool. I like the Honda E prototype.
Yes.
I thought that was all right.
You liked it, but I thought it looked stupid.
I guess the styling of it is subjective, and I can accept that, but I think it's a view to the future of where they're going to go, isn't it? So I think that's worth considering. Aston Martin had some stuff. Now, on the subject of concepts, though, let's have a look at the Audi Q4 e-tron, because I think that's a real window into where Audi's going electrically.
Absolutely. Look, the Volkswagen Group has already announced that they are rolling out countless electric cars. It's like 80 electric cars within the next decade. So it is a really big move by the Volkswagen Group. They've embraced the whole Dieselgate thing and propelled them forward to a stage now where they've got electric cars coming out of their ears. And Audi is one of the manufacturers that's really doing it well at the moment. They've announced the Q4 e-tron, which is effectively a smaller version of the bigger e-tron that's coming to Australia. And it's a car that boasts a pretty impressive package, 0 to 100 k's an hour in about 6.3 seconds, 450 kilometres of range, 225 kilowatts of power, and they reckon it'll be here by about 2021. So I'm really looking forward to that car.
I think what's really interesting with electric cars at the moment, and we saw the start of this tidal wave of change with, I think, the Hyundai Ioniq. I reckon what we're starting to see now is traditional automotive manufacturers come into the electric space. So unlike Tesla, which came from a technological background and then started building cars, you're seeing car manufacturers building electric cars. And I think the SUV segment is the one that's really going to start to kick that off. We're talking about Hyundai Kona. We've reviewed that at CarAdvice. We're also looking at things like BMW X3 coming out with electric power. I think SUVs, because they're so popular, that'll be where the real market starts to generate, won't it?
Yeah, I agree. The only thing I'm a little wary of is that SUVs traditionally have been all about, you know, getting the family around. You've got long distance range. With these electric cars, they're traditionally heavier because an SUV is a bigger body. It means bigger batteries. And then that means less range as well. So I'll be interested to see how the public perceives these things when they finally launch.
The other one that I think was most important really for the general market out of Geneva was the Mazda that was released. So CX-30 it's called. I think it's a really important vehicle for that brand, isn't it?
It is, but I just don't understand. I get SUV.
Where does it sit?
Yeah.
Where does it sit? That's the question, isn't it?
SUV crazy, but they just launched a new CX-3. The CX-30 sits between the CX-3 and the CX-5, measures in at 4.395 metres long. It's slightly smaller than a CX-5, but with a 430-litre boot, it is 200 litres more than a CX-3. So it is a functional car.
Well, we've talked about CX-3 being compromised before because it's actually on a Mazda 2 platform. So it is a tiny SUV. The naming convention's weird. You would have thought CX-4 would be the way you'd go and just call it that from the start. Which is China only. So you would have thought you'd go with that from the start. But yes, I think manufacturers are going SUV crazy, aren't they? And just almost for the sake of it.
Yeah, exactly. So this will be another one. It is coming to Australia. 3 engines to choose from: a 2-litre naturally aspirated engine, a 1.8-litre diesel, and they'll also have the Skyactiv X, which is a compression ignition engine for Mazda. And it's a fascinating car because it's seriously just a niche of a niche.
Yeah, it is.
But the big advantage is you don't get that sort of fairly cheap-looking CX-3 interior.
Well, there you have it. That's our quick Geneva wrap-up for 2019. Go to caradvice.com to have a look at all the concepts and all the production cars. Well, we're going to talk about a segment that we've never covered on the show. You've been asking for it. There's been letters, emails, phone calls. We've even received a few faxes. Can you please talk about dual cab utes? Because we never talk about them, do we?
Oh, you're very funny, Trent.
You thought I was going to go to my usual go-to joke. Now, for viewers out there who are A, wondering what we're on about, which is fair enough, and B, wondering what we're about to talk about here, this is not a comparison in the traditional way that we do them at CarAdvice. So these are not 3 dual cab utes we've put back to back. What we've done here is we've looked at 3 individually and we're going to dissect them here. So we have the 2019 Toyota Hilux SR, second from top. So SR5 is the traditional range topper, SR's below that. Then we have the Ford Ranger XLT, again, second down from the Wildtrak. Obviously now we have Ranger Raptor above that, which we've spoken about before. This one, the XLT, sits below the Wildtrak. Then we're looking at the Volkswagen Amarok V6 Core. Now this is effectively an entry-level version with the V6 engine, which is really clever. Let's first have a look at the Hilux SR, Paul, because it's really easy to just say, buy the top of the range one. But as Mike Costello found out in the review that we did there, he reckons the SR might actually be where the smart money is.
I mean, the SR makes a lot of sense because you're not paying that SR5 premium. So with SR5, they throw in all the little bits and pieces, but effectively you're getting the same car just for a whole lot less money.
That's right.
We found as well with testing with the Hilux, it's actually a really competent car off-road. So if you do need an off-road capable car but don't want to spend on SR5, that SR really sits beautifully in that mix. You have plenty of ground clearance. The 4-wheel drive systems are so effective that you can virtually line up any hill and this will go off-road anywhere. It really is only let down by a couple of things. So the engine, it is pretty weak compared to the rest of the competitors in this segment. It's a 2.8-litre diesel engine, so it can be a little asthmatic at times. And then the other thing that lets it down is the ride. It can be a little bit firm. Yeah,
a little bit firm, unladen. Now, what you made there, that point you made about going off-road, remote area touring, you really can't go wrong with a Toyota. So I think if you're going to head off-road, head around Australia, put a custom canopy on the back and just hit the road, I reckon the Hilux is the one to look at. And look at SR, as we said there, because it's a good specification.
It's also worth mentioning now as well that Toyota has finally realised they had a lot of issues with the diesel particulate filter. So this latest update, which you can see the styling of there's been a couple of minor changes, but the biggest change there is with the DPF. And that's the device that catches all the diesel particulates and burns them off later at a higher temperature. They've now added a switch in that car that allows you to do that manually. Previously, you had to wait for the car to do it, and it would only do it under certain conditions. And if you had predominantly driven that thing around the city, you'd have to go back to the dealer to get it fixed.
Well, our 70 series that we own at CarAdvice has that same switch, and it hasn't yet asked for it to go on, and we're at about 10,000 kilometres. So we'll monitor that and we'll report back there. Now, moving along to the second most popular vehicle in Australia, the Ford Ranger. If you drive around Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, any of the big cities, you see a hell of a lot of Ranger Wildtraks with 20 or 30 grand a year thrown at them. However, if you're on a budget, or you're a smarter buyer, you could argue, you look at this one, the XLT, one step down from Wildtrak. Here, Kes has tested the 2-litre four-wheel drive version of that one.
Yeah, the 2-litre is an interesting concept because they've moved away from a 3.2-litre 5-cylinder. That engine is still available, so the 2-litre is the optional unit. It produces more torque, 500 newton metres. It's a twin turbocharged engine. It comes with Ford's new 10-speed automatic gearbox, so it has all the pretty bells and whistles. You can also get the safety pack that includes autonomous emergency braking. That's the technology that stops the car if you don't, and it's good to see other manufacturers now adopting this as well. The Ranger really is a standout here because it's great off-road with just a couple of buttons to push, and it's in its settings. And also, it drives beautifully too with Australian ride and handling tuning on the car.
Makes a big difference. And look, you mentioned the torque there, 157 kilowatts, that 500 newton metres. It's excellent for around town. I don't really have any issue with that. And also the 10-speed automatic, which we don't love in something like, we don't love it in Mustang, for example. We do love it with the diesel engine. It works really well. I think the critical element with these two utes that we've looked at straight away, first up, the one issue that lets them down, I think, is towing performance. So if you're towing or carrying 800 or 900 kilos in the tray regularly, which are not a lot of people do, but a lot of people tow. They tow boats, they tow motorcycles, horse floats, those kinds of things. Both of these engines let you down a little bit, the 2.8 litre in the Toyota, 2 litre in the Ford, in terms of ultimate towing performance, don't they?
We're going to put this into context, right? It has a 3.5-tonne braked towing capacity.
Absolutely.
In fact, they both do there, the Volkswagen and the Ranger. 3.5 tonnes is a tonne more than the weight of the actual car.
That's a lot.
Unless you've got a meaty V6 diesel or even a petrol V8 engine, they are all going to struggle. So keep that in mind. Don't just default to a dual cab ute like a Ranger or a Hilux if you do want to tow stuff, because it can be hard work for overtaking and other sort of basic functions like that.
And on to that, moving on to the V6 engine, this is something we've talked about a lot at CarAdvice for quite a long time, which is the dual cab ute and that medium to large SUV segment actually needs a V6 diesel. You know, something like a Toyota Prado would be excellent with a V6 diesel. And the Amarok with the V6 engine is exceptional for towing and off-road work. Now, it's let down in safety, as we've said before. Second row airbags, electronic safety additions. However, that V6 diesel engine's a cracker, isn't it?
It is, and the pricing for the V6 Core kicks off at under $50,000.
It's really good value for money.
So for $7,000 less than that Ranger, you can have a V6 diesel engine, 550 newton metres of torque. And then if you want to spend a bit more for the ultimate, it boosts up to 580. It is faster than the Mercedes-Benz X-Class, which is a stack more money as well. It's only let down in terms of off-roading with ride height. So when we did our comparison between the SR5 and the V6 Core, which are roughly the same price, we found that the Volkswagen would bottom out a whole lot more because that under tray just isn't as versatile as the Hilux. But put those things aside, and the rear airbags, which I just don't understand how they don't have those yet, it is an absolute bargain if you are serious about towing.
And I think what it does is it answers that question that we've been asking, that this segment does work with a V6 engine. And, you know, the Mercedes-Benz will have that impact as well, but to a lesser degree because it's so expensive. But being able to get into a V6 diesel at around that $50,000 mark, that really opens it up to a lot more buyers, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm keen to hear from anyone at home. Their advice at caradvice.com. If you bought a V6 Amarok over the 4-cylinder, why did you do it? Was it primarily for towing, or did you just want that extra grunt behind you? Let us know, because it is a curious topic.
Large SUVs, Paul, another segment that Australians just absolutely love, and they will not consider anything else, will they?
Look, it fascinates me continuously that people love large SUVs, and my wife's the same. Like, we used to have a Mazda 2, and she knew just a Mazda 2. Second she hops into an SUV, it's the best thing
ever.
Because you're sitting taller, you get that feeling of power. So I just think it gives you more confidence on the road, and that's probably why they're popular.
People love that higher ride height. And here we've taken a look at the 2019 Kia Sorento GT line, so the top of the tree as far as the Kia Sorento goes. And straight off the bat, I'll let the cat out of the bag. We've given it 8.9 out of 10, which is a very, very good score. And anything around 9, we're effectively saying you can almost buy this thing without test driving it. Now, to say that the Kia Sorento is the best vehicle in the large SUV class, just have a look, or close enough to the best, have a look at some of the options in that class. This is incredibly competitive. Forget the expensive European stuff. You've got things like Toyota Kluger and Prado. They both sit in that class. We've got Honda CR-V, Hyundai Santa Fe, Mazda CX CX-8 is in there as well.
CX-9
and
as well.
CX-9 as well. It's an incredibly competitive segment and fighting tooth and nail to get buyers across the line. So I think what Kia's offering here is a really compelling product, great value for money, just under $60,000.
Tell you what they're offering as well. Every single feature you could ever think of.
All standard,
So you've got 7-year warranty, heated and cooled seats,
Yep.
Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, a giant boot, and a really cracking diesel engine as well. This is one of my favourite features of this car, 147 kilowatts of power, but it's the torque, 441 newton metres of torque. So despite the fact it's a 4-cylinder diesel, you know that when you get on that throttle, it's going to get the car moving without any dramas. You've got 7 seats, and although the third row is a little bit cramped, it is mainly just for kids. Kids are going to be fine in there.
Yeah,
so you're not going to
absolutely.
buy this thing if you're going to transport adults all day long. But it really fits the bill for everything that you need. You'll do some light off-roading to go to a camping site, and it looks stunning as well, I reckon.
Yeah, the styling's great. And look, we talk a lot about, you know, families with 2 or 3 children that might take the kids to soccer or netball practice, for example, and then have to run a few other kids home. On the run home, you need that third row of seating. Back on the engine, this was really impressive for me. Mandy did the test down in Melbourne. Kia claims 7.2 litres per 100 on the combined cycle. Mandy actually bettered that. She got 6.9 litres. Now, she did a lot of highway running, but this diesel engine is incredibly efficient.
Yep.
Yes, it's powerful, but I think what a lot of people want to know in the real world is how efficient it's going to be and how much money they're going to be spending on fuel. The fact that you can better the claim or even get close to it around town is really impressive.
Because often you can't.
No, that's right.
Often we're miles off it, even just with normal driving. So it is really positive to see. And the thing that really gets me going with this car is that you're getting features from more expensive cars. So radar cruise control is one of those things that you would only have found on like an Audi, and it's an option on a lot of Audis still. It's now standard on a car like this. You can do your towing there as well. Kia even offers a heavy-duty towing pack because often you are limited when it comes to towing with downball weight because of the rear suspension. So here they're able to beef that up and give you that added downball weight. So you can actually tow a small caravan with this if you need to. And the 7-year warranty also gives you that confidence to drive it around Australia if you need to as well.
Well, the 7-year warranty is the big selling factor. I think that really gets people over the line with Kia. And also, too, the brand perception now is that it's a lot more premium than it's ever been. Absolutely, you have no problem buying a Kia. I think there what you were talking about is a really interesting one, the standard kit that you get on a top-of-the-range Kia like this. So GT line, again, is this specification. The standard kit is really impressive. Now, let's take a look at some of the other options in that segment. We've been running a long-term Honda CR-V in Sydney. It's an excellent vehicle and has always been, in terms of affordability, one of the best in that segment. However, right now, it can't really match the Sorento in terms of specification and standard equipment.
And size.
And size, even though it's a good thing to drive. I think even the Hyundai Santa Fe struggles a little bit in terms of cabin space compared to the Kia, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. The Santa Fe, I've really liked.
I love it too, yeah, I think it's fantastic.
Highlander really ticks that box in terms of style, comfort and that type of thing. And they do offer a few more features, but the Sorento really rules on size. I do love what a lot of people are doing these days in terms of moving to a Kluger or the Acadia for petrol V6 options. Often, yes, while this is really good in terms of fuel consumption, a petrol V6 will use more, but not a great deal more. And if you're used to being in and around the city, it's going to be much of a muchness when you look at fuel prices and also how much they're consuming. They're also really big cars as well in the Kluger. I mean, it's just a dependable car, you know, you can throw lots of things into and it'll get you from A to B without any dramas.
I think the other factor there too, we were talking about warranty before and, you know, perceived reliability. I think what Kia's done here in terms of that 7-year warranty, we obviously know that's industry leading, you know, and a lot of other manufacturers are chasing their tail trying to catch up with Kia on that one. Included servicing, I think, is really important. So you know from the outset what it's going to cost you to service the car over that first period. And then also included roadside assistance. That's great as well. You know, if you're mum or dad running the kids around and it's a rainy day and something goes wrong or you get a flat tyre or something, you need to know that you've got that roadside assistance to help you out in those sorts of times, don't you?
Can I talk about potentially what... Actually, is this a negative or a positive? I'm going to ask you a question without notice here. So the spare tyre for this car, often they're located under the boot floor. And obviously if you're travelling and you've got a mountain of things in the boot, the last thing you want is a blowout.
Everything out,
so the spare tyre for this car is located under the rear. Do you think it's better or worse to have it under the back there? Because obviously it attracts dust, it gets pretty dirty, so when you do come to change it, if you're not within reach of roadside, you can't be bothered waiting, you're going to do it yourself. Do you think it's better to be in the boot or under the car?
I tell you what, that's a good point. And I've done a hell of a lot of tyre changes out in the dust when I've been four-wheel driving, and you've got to get in there with that thing and wind it down and lay in the dirt and get it out and put the spare back up there.
Yep.
So yeah, that's a good question. Let us know, advice@caradvice.com. For me, I reckon inside the boot, and just don't carry as much junk around in the boot with you.
Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Good luck with that if you've got kids. Advice@caradvice.com. Let us know what you think. Most of us at Car Advice have got no interest in Formula One at all. However, two of us do. Myself and founder Alborz Fallah, who joins us at the desk. Hello, mate.
Hey, mate.
We're sort of into the start of the season. We've had some things go wrong for Ricciardo in Australia. He's made the move to Renault. A lot of people made that question. We're going to have a look first at that, and then I want us to dissect a little bit about whether it has any impact on car sales, because I think that's the key. So first of all, the move to Renault, I think it was a good one. What do you think?
Oh, look, I mean, apparently the salary was almost 3 or 4 times that much.
Exactly.
And I think with the regulations changing in 2021, you could sort of see Ricciardo thinking, maybe I'll do a Hamilton here and I'll swap before it gets better at a massive pay and then hope that it'll get better. Because certainly at Red Bull, you know, he was overshadowed by Max. Yeah. He really was.
Firstly, Melbourne is the first race of the season, right? So that's why it's an important one. When you say that he's moved to Renault, he was at Red Bull, has moved because of better contract and this type of thing. What are these regulations that are changing in 2021?
They still haven't actually fully decided. They were going to change the engine a little bit, but now everybody's complained about the cost. The idea was to make it easier for another manufacturer to get in, but that certainly hasn't happened. So.
And the thing is too, you've got a lot of what we would call non-manufacturers in there. So you've got teams like the old Force India, Haas F1. They're not actually manufacturers. Even Red Bull are not manufacturers. They're tied in with Aston Martin. But the interesting thing is that Formula One, I think, to go forward, and this is why I want to ask you about sales, to go forward, you need manufacturer involvement. So back in the day, we had Toyota. There were rumours that we had Honda as a brand. There were rumours that the Volkswagen Group was going to go in.
Oh, they were weeks away before Dieselgate.
Before Dieselgate, post their Le Mans program. We've seen a lot of Ricciardo doing advertising now for Renault. He was down there, he's done an ad with the Koleos. I've seen plenty of billboards around town with the RS branding. Do you reckon it makes any difference to car sales?
I actually saw, because I watched it from home, I live just around the corner from the track, and I saw the ad come up with Ricciardo and the Koleos, and it was actually a really good ad. If you take him out of it, the ad itself was really good. The fact that it was doing stuff in the sand, chopping around and stuff, it helps the image of the brand.
I mean, having walked around the Grand Prix in Melbourne, there were so many people wearing yellow shirts. I don't even think they knew what Renault was before Dan's name was associated to it. So I think they've sold more Renault shirts in the last couple of days at the Grand Prix than they have in the entirety of the few years prior. So I think it certainly helped the brand awareness. But whether that translates to sales, I don't think it will. I genuinely don't think it will. I don't think anyone's going to go and buy a Renault because Dan Ricciardo's driving for the team.
Well, that's the thing. If you've driven to the race in your Toyota Hilux or your Ford Ranger, one of the top 2 selling vehicles in Australia, are you really going to go and buy a Renault Megane?
You know where it could open them up, though, especially for the Melbourne race, because you've got the Porsche Carrera Cup, you have the V8s, the supercars, whatever they're calling them.
They're V8 supercars.
But I wonder whether it opens that side of things up. Here's another question for you. I was watching on Sunday morning, they had the driver parade. They said that this is one of the only F1 events in the world where the drivers, it's almost like in their contracts that they have to walk through for the fans to meet them. Is that something unique about the Melbourne Formula One experience?
Look, the Melbourne Grand Prix is always regarded as the best Grand Prix in terms of organisation. So all the other Grand Prix use it as a sort of a platform of what to do.
What's really interesting for me these days is the relevance of motor racing in general. I think motor racing globally has got some issues. You know, supercars here has got a whole bunch of issues. You're racing a Mustang that doesn't look like a Mustang, a Commodore that you can't actually buy, and a Nissan that's no longer branded as a Nissan and won't be there next year. Once it goes, you're back to Ford versus Holden. I think categories like the GT Championship and what we see at the Bathurst 12-hour, I think what we see at the Bathurst 12-hour is more likely to make inroads because they're cars that people recognise and they're different.
Look, I agree with you. I think F1, though, has always historically been more of a glamour and a sort of prestige thing.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, the motorsport part is, for us, is obviously very important.
Yeah.
But, you know, being at many Grand Prix, most of the people that sort of show up there that wouldn't even know who Lewis Hamilton is.
Well, that's a good point too. Yeah, that's a good point too. They've got no idea what they're watching. Yeah,
they're just there to have a few drinks and enjoy it. Kind of like the Melbourne Cup.
Well, that's exactly right.
Oh, there are horses here.
Yeah, I think
that's how I am at the Melbourne Cup. When I go there, I'm like, oh, that horse looks fun.
I tell you what, we're not solving anything here. So, advice at caradvice.com. Do you watch Formula One? Do you like Formula One? If you don't watch it, which is your favourite motor racing category and why? Well, it's a recurring theme, but we've run out of time. Paul, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, mate. Cheers.
Yeah, that half hour goes very quickly. Join us again, same time next week, 7:30 p.m. on Your Money.